This is a collection of poems that I've called Poems I Keep Inside. I've got a poem of my own called Melancholy Air that has these lines. When every breath is melancholy air, I look inside and ask my soul to sing some song it knows, some long forgotten thing remembered by the Holy Spirit's there. These poems are mostly, I think all but one, by other people. And the first one I'm going to read is Sailing to Byzantium, because it's been an important poem to me, not only for its poetry, but mostly for what it says. Yeats said on a radio broadcast in 1931 that he had decided that it was time for an old man to make his soul, and that was one of the things, this poem was one of the things that he had done to start making his soul. Sailing to Byzantium. I think he was only about 65 at the time, so he wasn't actually very old. That is no country for old men. The young in one another's arms, birds in the trees, those dying generations at their song, the salmon falls, the mackerel crowded seas, fish, flesh or fowl commend all summer long, whatever is begotten, born and dies. Caught in that central music, all neglect monuments of an unaging intellect. An aged man is but a paltry thing, a tattered coat upon a stick, unless soul clap its hands and sing, and louder sing, for every tatter in its mortal dress. Nor is there singing school, but studying monuments of his own magnificence. And therefore I have sailed the seas and come to the holy city of Byzantium. O sages standing in God's holy fire, as in the gold mosaic of a wall, come from the holy fire, burn in a gyre, and be the singing masters of my soul. Consume my heart away sick with desire, and fasten to a dying animal that knows not what it is, and gather me into the artifice of eternity. Once out of nature, I shall never take my bodily form from any natural thing, but such a form as Grecian goldsmiths make, of hammered gold and gold enameling, to keep a drowsy emperor awake, or set upon a golden bough to sing to lords and ladies of Byzantium of what is past, or passing, or to come. An aged man is but a paltry thing, unless soul clap its hands and sing. This is an Emily Dickinson poem. Will there really be a morning? Is there such a thing as day? Could I see it from the mountains if I were as tall as they? Has it feet like water lilies? Has it feathers like a bird? Is it brought from famous countries of which I have never heard? O some scholar, O some sailor, O some wise man from the skies, please to tell a little pilgrim where the place called morning lies. This is the song of the Wandering Angus by Yeats. I went out to the hazelwood because a fire was in my head, and cut and peeled a hazel wand and hooked a berry to a thread. And when white moths were on the wing and moth-like stars were flickering out, I dropped the berry in the stream and caught a little silver trout. When I had laid it on the floor, I went to blow the fire flame, but something rustled on the floor. and someone called me by my name. It had become a glimmering girl with apple blossom in her hair, who called me by my name and ran and faded through the brightening air. Though I am old with wandering through hollow lands and hilly lands, I will find out where she is gone, and kiss her lips and take her hands, and walk among long dappled grass, and pluck till time and times are done, the silver apples of the moon, the golden apples of the sun. This is Shakespeare, Sonnet 18. Shall I compare thee to a summer day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate. Rough winds do shake the darling buds of May, and summer's lease hath all too short of date. Sometime too hot, the eye of heaven shines, and often is his gold complexion dimmed, and every fair from fair sometime declines, by chance or nature's changing course untrimmed. But thy eternal summer shall not fade, nor lose possession of that fair thou owest. Nor shall death brag thou wanderest in his shade, when in eternal line to time thou growest. So long as men can breathe or eyes can see, so long lives this, and this gives life to thee. Emily Dickinson. Hope is a thing with feathers that perches in the soul, and sing the tune without the words, it never stops at all. And sweetest in the gale is heard, and sore must be the storm that could abash the little bird that kept so many warm. I've heard it in the chillest land and on the strangest sea, yet never in extremity it asked a crumb of me. That poem has been a help on many occasions. It's Emily Dickinson. And this next poem is a poem by Edward Thomas, an English poet who died in World War I. It's called Addlestrop. Yes, I remember Addlestrop, the name, because one afternoon of heat, the express train drew up there unwontedly. It was late June. The steam hissed. Someone cleared its throat. No one left and no one came on the bare platform. What I saw was Addlestrop, only the name, and willows, willow herb and grass, and meadowsweet, and haycocks dry, no whit less still and lonely fair than the high cloudlets in the sky. And for that minute, a blackbird sang close by, and round him, mistier, farther and farther, all the birds of Oxfordshire and Gloucestershire. This poem is The Sheaves by Edwin Arlington Robinson. Where long the shadows of the wind had rolled, green wheat was yielding to the change assigned, and as if by some vast magic undivined, the world was turning slowly into gold. Like nothing that was ever bought or sold, it waited there, the body and the mind, and with a mighty meaning of a kind that tells the more it is not told. So in a land where all days are not fair, fair days went on till on another day, 1,000 golden sheaves were lying there, shining and still, but not for long to stay, as if 1,000 girls with golden hair might rise from where they slept and go away. I like that one for the metaphor, and particularly for the 1,000 girls with golden hair. This is a Robert Frost poem, I Could Give All to Time. To time it never seems that he is brave, to set himself against the peaks of snow, to lay them level with the running wave. Nor is he overjoyed when they lie low, but only grave, contemplative, and grave. What now is inland shall be ocean isle, then eddies playing round a sunken reef, like the curl at the corner of a smile. And I could share time's lack of joy or grief at such a planetary change of style. I could give all to time except what I myself have held. But why declare the things forbidden that while the custom slept I have crossed to safety with? For I am there, and what I would not part with, I have kept. I like that for several reasons. First, the first two stanzas are something I've looked at during my career. We worked with paleogeographic maps, which will show changes through time, and you could see the islands that just became sunken reefs. And sometimes we were exploring for minerals in the sunken reefs, and so that's all something that I relate with perfectly. And then the last stanza makes it all human and sets our place within the ephemeral world. This is called The Necklace by Osip Mandelstam, one who died for poetry in a Siberian camp. Take from my palms for joy, for ease, a little honey, a little sun, that we may obey Persephone's bees. You can't untie a boat unmoored. Fur-shod shadows can't be heard, nor terror in this life mastered. Love, what's left for us and of us, is this living remnant, loving revenant, brief kiss like a bee flying completed, dying hiveless to find in the forest heart a home, night's never-ending hum, thriving on meadowsweet mint and thyme. Take for all it is good, for all it is gone, that it may lie rough and real against your collarbone, the string of bees that once turned honey into sun. The bees are the words of the poem. The string of bees is a necklace. And this is the poem by Alexander Pushkin, who died for love, the most famous Russian poet who died in a duel over love, called I Loved You. I loved you, and perhaps I love you still. The flame, perhaps, is not extinguished, yet it burns so quietly within my soul. No longer should you feel distressed by it. Silently and hopelessly, I loved you, at times too jealous and at times too shy. God grant you find another who will love you as tenderly and truthfully as I. That's translated by Bette Deutsch, and the necklace was translated by Wyman. This is a Yeats poem called Politics. How can I? That girl standing there, my attention fixed on Roman or on Russian or on Spanish politics. Yet here's a traveled man that knows what he talks about. And there's a politician that has both read and thought. And maybe what they say is true of war and war's alarms. But oh, that I were young again and held her in my arms. I think that's the last poem Yeats wrote. My first job in the West was at the Atomic Energy Commission. We were looking for uranium on the Navajo reservation. We lived at Cove, Arizona, a small community at the foot of the Lukachuki Mountains. We were prospecting along a mesa rim about 1,500 feet above the valley floor to the east and west. To the west, the view opened off toward Monument Valley and Canyon de Chelly. And to the east was Shiprock, which when fog covered the valley did look like a ship at sea. One of my memories is of being up on the top on a still day and hearing in the valley below a Navajo boy singing as he herded sheep. In my imagination, he's singing the homecoming song. It's what we read for Margaret at the end as she looked out at the golden aspen. Beauty goes before me. Beauty goes beside me. Beauty follows me. Mountains sing with me. Bluebirds sing with me. Tall pine trees talk with me. I see smoke coming from my hoedown. My heart is good. My spirit is good. All is beauty. All is beauty. All is beauty. That's translated from the Navajo by Hildefonse Wetherill. The homecoming song is based on a ritual called the Navajo Night Chant, said to be their most sacred ceremony. It's a 9-day ritual. In Segahi, in the house made of dawn, is one of the images. For a while, we lived in Australia. Our children went to school there, and we tried to absorb as much of Australia as we could. It was wonderful. I became entranced with Australian poetry, especially the poetry of Adam Lindsay Gordon and Banjo Patterson and Henry Lawson, all late 1800s or early 1900s. There is in some of the poetry a peculiar meter that seems, of the poetry I know, to be uniquely Australian. It's a hard beat and then 3 soft beats, and this especially, along with alliteration, can give it an almost hypnotic effect. The dawn at Morabinda was a mist-racked, dull and dense. The sunrise was a sullen, sluggish lamp. That's Gordon. Or there was movement at the station, for the word had got around that the colt from Old Regret had got away. Patterson. And this in a more normal meter by Lawson, which makes me think of Margaret, my partner in exploration and discovery and in life. The night too quickly passes, and we're growing old. So let us fill our glasses and toast the days of gold, when finds a wondrous treasure set all the south ablaze. And you and I were faithful mates all through the roaring days. And after the war, I ended up in school up on Lake Superior, and in the town library I found a book of poems by Alan Seeger, and one of them caught my eye. I think I had heard some of the words. There was a sports writer, Grantland Rice, who was very fond of Alan Seeger, and so I had heard he used some of the words in some of his writings. But Alan Seeger he joined he was American and joined the French Foreign Legion before America got into World War I, and he was killed in that war. But the poem I found was "I Have a Rendezvous with Death," and I guess it caught my attention because I was still, of course, thinking about the war, and the poem is more romantic than my memories of the war, but I think it got me hooked on poetry. I have a rendezvous with death at some disputed barricade when spring comes back with rustling shade and apple blossoms fill the air. I have a rendezvous with death when spring brings back blue days and fair. It may be he shall take my hand and lead me into his dark land and close my eyes and quench my breath. It may be I shall pass him still. I have a rendezvous with death on some scarred slope of battered hill when spring comes round again this year and the first meadow flowers appear. God knows 'twere better to be deep, pillowed in silk and scented down, where love drops out in blissful sleep, pulse nigh to pulse, and breath to breath, where hushed awakenings are dear. But I've a rendezvous with death at midnight in some flaming town, when spring trips north again this year, and I to my pledge word am true. I shall not fail that rendezvous. I guess one thing about that poem is that it reminds me of Robert Burleson, because Seeger was wounded in an advance and his comrades had to leave him behind as they went forward. But when they came back, he had died. And Robert Burleson was wounded when our company was overrun and then died later. But not long after that, I discovered Walt Whitman. And there's a poem in Walt Whitman that I always connect with Robert. As toilsome I wandered Virginia's woods, to the music of rustling leaves kicked by my feet, for 'twas autumn. I marked at the foot of a tree the grave of a soldier, mortally wounded he, and buried on the retreat. Easily all could I understand. The halt of a midday hour, when up, no time to lose, yet this sign left on a tablet scrawled and nailed on the tree by the grave: bold, cautious, true, and my loving comrade. Long, long I muse, then on my way go wandering, many a changeful season to follow, and many a scene of life, yet at times, through changeful season and scene, abrupt, alone, or in the crowded street, comes before me the unknown soldier's grave, comes the inscription rude, in Virginia's woods, bold, cautious, true, and my loving comrade. And the last one is one of my own that I wrote for Robert. It's called Epinol. It seems unfair, considering all, that I am here in this place now, with 90 summers on my brow, and you are there in Epinol, among our comrades sleeping there, that I can hear the robins sing, and see the almond tree in spring, and you are there. It isn't fair. Flowers, if you grow in Epinol, grow near where Robert lies. I will dream at his eyes and see some fairness after all.